Grace, Geltman, and Weld on the Hammer Factor. Take it away, boys.
What? Yeah. Lewis, do we have any friends?
You can. All right, everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the Hammer Factor. It's been a while. Hope everybody had a good Corona vacation there.
First of all, the pre-show was the show. I think we should.
I wasn't recording all that, and we basically had a rebellion of one of our cast members here, so can't put that on the show. 2020, what an insane year it has been. We're back to discuss everything from PPE to public lands. I'd like to start off by introducing my co-host, owner of Immersion Research and PPE Master, John Weld, Outdoor Alliance champion, and Lewis Geltman. I was going off the rails. I brought it back in. You got to be proud of me for that. You know.
Thanks, Grant.
So what's new, guys? It's been a while.
Yeah, seriously. As always, anybody listening will never know exactly how close we came to never doing this again, as is usually the case. We take a long absence. Although people probably had an inkling of it this time. It's been like 6 months. It's feel like it's been like fucking 5 years.
God, dude,
I don't
it's been
even know
crazy.
where we left off in the ongoing drama of 2020.
It doesn't matter. Like, everything that was going on then isn't going on now. You know what I mean?
It's true. Every day is a Wednesday, and every day is crazier than the Wednesday before.
I beg to differ. I think one of the most important stories we need to talk about today has been ongoing and progressing since we left. And that's Apex Kayaks, Apex Watercraft.
What's going on?
Right? I mean, that's the headline of the show. Apex.
What's in the news?
What's not in the news?
I have not been following. There's been like other things going on in life. What is the news right at this
Well, they're
point?
making fishing boats.
Sick. Have they
Kickstarter?
got one out?
Well, no. But it's forthcoming. They released a Kickstarter campaign. This is EJ's new venture, to make sure everyone knows what we're talking about there. Post Jackson Kayak, Apex Watercraft.
We really are just jumping right back in as if we never left, huh?
Right. Paddle offsets will be in a minute. We'll get back to that.
Oh, God.
I'm picturing Apex Watercraft to be like a Melrose Place type soap opera. That's how I keep it real. That's how I keep it entertaining for me.
What?
Fabricated.
This is how I imagine Apex Kayaks.
This is the world you're living
Pat
in.
Keller, in a twist that nobody expected, suddenly taking money from the Bank of Islam, previously funding Confluence Kayaks, right? Working in cahoots with Sutton Bacon, who is working to destroy the industry through a Hydrus-like network of micro trade shows with no more than 5 people at every show. Right? Something like that. Something fun. Exciting.
Oh, God. On a product front, isn't it exciting to see a carbon boat manufacturer out there? I mean, who knows if it'll ever work, but it seems cool to me.
It is a topic of discussion in the industry. People are discussing whether there's actually a market for presumably an $8,000 carbon fishing kayak.
Is that what the numbers are?
I mean, how would you make a super light, small production composite kayak with all the tooling and everything that's going to be involved with it? If they're, I mean, it's going to be something. I mean, it's going to be many thousands of dollars, I would guess, right?
I mean, I have no
The number
idea.
I heard was 8,000. I don't know. The Kickstarter hasn't been launched yet, so I guess they're going to fund this thing.
I will say that kayak fishing has been the one of the saving graces of paddle sports through this whole COVID thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, essentially they shut down a lot of the boat ramps, boat docks. All these fishermen were like, how am I going to go fishing? So it seems like everybody's out of fishing kayaks in the industry. It's sold out.
Right.
They can't make them fast enough.
I feel like I've heard similar things about like the bike industry, like it's definitely not necessarily like the high-end bikes, but like everybody's like, people are buying bikes, It's like maybe this will be good for the outdoor industry in some ways.
There's always a silver lining.
Might be good for participation. I don't know if it'll be good for the industry, but
I'll tell you, being in the event production and media production, it is not good for this industry. Let me just assure you of that. I know I told some of you guys about like the early days of this thing, watching 3 months of my calendar evaporate in 3 days was pretty sobering.
So now what are you doing?
I just kind of figured a way out of it. I think we're lucky. We have a pretty broad set of expertise that, we've transferred a lot of stuff to web development and online campaigns and live streaming stuff instead of some of the other things we were doing.
Well, I might picture you doing landscaping.
You know what? That actually, I have a neighbor who's
digging an in-ground pool or something with a shovel.
I have a neighbor who's landscaping, and I talked to him about it. I was like, "Hey, Dave, if this all goes sour for me, you got a place for me?" He was like, "I'll put you to work."
Yeah, I know the feeling.
So that was pretty good, but outside of that initial thing, we're kind of figuring out a way to make it work here.
I feel like I have to bring this up, which is, Billy Hearn saw this whole thing coming like sooner than just about anybody, certainly anybody I know. Billy called me in like January and was like, this thing is coming. And he called it like so early. And it was, like all the boys in the gorge here are like Geltman, you were right about this whole thing. You've been like telling me about this like months before it happened. And I was like, all I did was listen to Billy, Billy.
I picture Billy having like a quiver of like a half a dozen apocalyptic scenarios he's been playing over and over again for the past 20 years. But he finally struck gold with this one.
But the thing is that he's not like Billy's not like it's not like he's like spinning them out all the time. Like it's like he's probably monitoring various apocalyptic scenarios, but he's not like, oh yeah, the world's ending tomorrow. Like this is the first time that that he's called me up and been like, this is gonna get really gnarly. And I was like, well, I hope you're wrong. But then I got some masks and went to the grocery store and bought 10 pounds of rice, and like I'm glad I did.
Billy Hearn, in essence, Billy Hearn's another example of a really, really smart guy whose life got completely sidelined by kayaking.
Oh, God, dude.
And all the potential is just gone.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm a really smart guy, but I'm definitely in that camp. I mean, God, life was hijacked. Hey, dude, I got to admit, I was a super early adopter of the whole coronavirus thing because I had a shoot in California the last week of January, and I start seeing these news clips come out, and they're like 16 new hospitals built in 10 days in China and this and that, and I'm like, what is going on? So I went to the store, got some masks and all this kind of thing, and I wasn't so much worried about getting sick, but I was worried about them cutting flights and not being able to get home. And then like sure enough, I'm out there, so I'm like following the news the whole time I'm out there, and it's just kind of escalating and escalating and escalating, and I'm just like, God, get me back home before this blows up. And then it still took it like another 3 weeks after I got home to blow up, but I don't know. I mean, what a crazy 2020.
Yeah.
Do you guys know anybody who's had it?
Yeah, Eric Martin from Wilderness Warriors. Eric and Koss, his wife.
And how did that turn out for them?
Eric, I haven't talked to Eric in person about this, but by all accounts, he was really, really, really sick. And he's like, I mean, he's one of us in the sense that he's healthy and active, and he's probably late 40s, early 50s. But he was like, he lost like 12 pounds. He didn't get out of bed for like 12 days or something like that.
Whoa, was he hospitalized?
No, I guess he didn't reach the point where I shouldn't say, I'm not exactly sure why I didn't go to the hospital, but they got tested later on, and relatively recently they both had the antibody.
Damn, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know another person who is a previous guest of the Hammer Factor who got it, but I feel a little weird about sort of like disclosing people's medical stories about.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I know a couple people who have had it. Various symptoms from super mild to bad fever for a while. Luckily everybody pulled out of it, but crazy times.
It's crazy.
Well, we got a jam-packed show. We got Alec Voorhees, who is the new race director for the North Fork Championship, who's going to be on with us later. As well, we have Kevin Colburn, who works with American Whitewater, and he is going to join us in the Great American Outdoors Act. We're going to discuss the Pisgah Nantahala National Forest Revision Plan, Nolichucky Wild and Scenic, various other things. But my God, man, you got to admit, anybody ever had an experience in your life like 2020?
I mean, I don't think anybody has, right? I mean, it's been, or at least anyone in the United States. I don't know. It's gnarly.
I mean, Will, did you think in February that you were going to be sewing gowns in like 4 or 5 weeks?
Well, obviously not. No. I mean, we didn't think about making PPE until literally the day, the doctor and the other guy came walking into our factory asking for, or our shop asking for them.
How did all that come to be? You told me a little bit, but kind of paint this picture for us.
So this is like mid-March. We're at our White Salmon store, and it's just starting to. The fact that this is really going to be a real problem is just starting to sink in. And listen, we make kayaking gear. We're not, it's always every year is a crapshoot. I mean, there's a million ways these businesses can get reduced to rubble, as we've seen, through many examples in paddle sports history. Anyway, we're sitting there. Literally the day we're sitting there, the staff wondering what are we going to do to get through this. A doctor, Dr. Berge, is a woman doctor in Hood River. She works at Providence in Oregon, and a guy named Maui Meyer. Yeah, that's his name, Maui. It's Hood River. And he owns a real estate company here, among other things, in town. And they just came into the factory and they had an isolation gown, one of these surgical gowns. And Dr. Berge she pointed out that masks are getting made and they're relatively easy to make, but no one's making these surgical gowns. These gowns are things that keep like bodily fluid and whatever off of people's bodies. It's an important part of PPE when you're in the hospital. She said, "Can you make these?" And I'm like, "Yeah, actually, we can make these." And it's super simple sewing, but it also turns out a lot of the things that are the PPE, they need to be relatively airproof and waterproof, and the construction and the seams and how these things get together kind of are similar, but much simpler than like a dry suit. And so the way it worked is because we're not an approved medical facility, to make approved medical protection. They did this by raising money through donations, and they actually raised a tremendous amount of money in the whole Pacific Northwest. The idea is we're going to make these gowns for local hospitals, meaning basically between Portland and up the Columbia Gorge, and we'd give them to the hospitals. And so we got a budget, and we bought about 8 sewing machines and hired maybe 8 or 9 out-of-work kayakers, and we got a factory space donated to us, and literally in 3 or 4 days we were sewing gowns. And we couldn't get, the crazy thing is at the time we couldn't get, gowns are made with, they're made with an impregnated spun-bound material, right? And what that means is it's material has some kind of, it's cheap material that's waterproof and airproof, doesn't hold bacteria, right? Typically this would be like Tyvek. Tyvek is like a material that's impregnated with polyethylene, HDPE. It's cheap. It's easy to sew. It's waterproof, relatively waterproof. But we couldn't get this. There's nothing available out in the medical world to get this. Like everything else for PEP in March, you could not get anything like this. So I went down to the hardware store because I knew home wrap, the stuff they wrap houses with, Tyvek, is basically, it's the same thing. It's fibrous material impregnated with polypropylene or polyethylene. And so we started buying house wrap. Tyvek house wrap, and that was our original thing. Is before anyone could make surgical gowns, we were making tons of surgical gowns to make out of house wrap. And so we bought, we bought 400 rolls or something of 12-foot Tyvek and cut it with bandsaws into cuttable, rolls of fabric you cut on a cutting table, and we started production. And it gave us a real jumpstart on this, because before anyone else could get gown fabric, we were making this out of house wrap, and it's actually caught on, and other people heard about what we were doing and started using house wrap as well. And at some point, I think DuPont stepped in and wasn't too super psyched about the situation. DuPont, who has such a sterling reputation in so many ways. And there was some legal talk about what was going on here. I think they realized they couldn't really stop people from doing it. I don't know, but I mean that would really not be a great piece of PR for them.
Does DuPont make Tyvek?
They make Tyvek. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And I could see them not wanting house wrap showing up in a hospital room and someone getting sick because it's not an approved garment. You know, I understand that, but hey, it is what it is. So we ended up making 12,000 or over 10,000 gowns in
and how
3
long?
months. Under 3 months, 2.5 months, something like that. But it was fun because it was a bunch of kayakers, all of whom have never sewn before, sat down in these industrial sergers and ultrasonic machines, and we just got them trained up and started hammering these things out.
That's really cool. So are you done with
So
it?
cool.
That's what we did. That's what I did full time. I sat down. I haven't done this in 20 years, but we ran a sewing factory, and we sat down and I sewed at a sewing machine every day for 8 hours a day for almost 3 months, alongside everybody else. It was great. So
are you done with that? Are you going to make more? Or?
Well, we got a contract from the state of Oregon to make 10,000 gowns, and at this point, we'd already had a bunch of. We had a couple more factories on board who were part of the team. You know, we put together a tech pack, meaning we gave them really specific instructions how to make these things and the patterns, and we'd already figured out a good system for putting these things together. But we got an order from the state of Oregon for 10,000 gowns, which we filled jointly. And when that was over last Tuesday, we sewed the last gown. And the crazy thing is that we, you know, literally in 4 days we had a sewing factory up and running, but there was still a lot of kinks to work out. By the end of the 3 months, we were really good at what we were doing, and we had it dialed, you know, and we were getting really cost effective in putting these things together and cutting this fabric. And we were basically telling anyone who wanted gowns that we could make them. We couldn't make them in onesies and twosies like for a dentist office or whatever, but we could take an order for 10,000 gowns, no problem, right? And we had a little network of factories that we could expand if need be. But almost right away, we were talking with buyers for hospitals. This was kind of the crazy part, and this is mid-pandemic, you know, and this would be like a buyer for a hospital group, and these guys would represent, you know, maybe the entire state of New Mexico or 10,000 or 1,000 hospitals or whatever. And we'd be like, they'd say, well, we're looking for this. And they'd send us a screenshot from an Alibaba, you know, page with like a hospital gown for like $1.50 or $2. And they said, this is what we want. Like, well, we can't do that. And I said, and it'd be like, you know, I don't think you're going to get that. That's that's, you know what I mean? I get that. But furthermore, the reason we're in this predicament is because you keep going back to these guys to get these gowns, right? And it's been made clear to me by anyone who's on the front lines, these gowns that they're getting for $2 are garbage. I mean, they're barely. I've seen these things; they are garbage. I would not consider these a protective garment in any way, shape, or form. I mean, they're trash. The things we were making were so much more effective at keeping bodily fluids off of your person. But it was just a good glimpse at the broken, I guess, entire medical industry, right? I don't know. But at the beginning, we were like, this would be another job or side gig or another second company. But by the end of the 3 months, we realized that this is a crazy, crazier than paddle sports even.
Man, crazy indeed. I have a neighbor who is in the ventilator business. He works for Philips. And early on, we were talking about, oh God, you know, you talking about just people being in this predicament, and the predicament where we can't get these gowns and they're coming in. And so basically in China, they had thousands of ventilators that they had already had made at their factory there, but China would not ship them out. And essentially there were two reasons. One was they wanted to keep them there in case they needed them, you know, in case they needed them. And number two, you know, they're not exactly doing any favors on trade with the U.S. right now.
Of course.
So it opens up, you know, we spent a half hour talking about it, and, you know, they're basically divesting where they manufacture and all kinds of things. This is a big company, Philips, but I find it interesting you were in that foray for a while.
The thing is, I mean, what the common sense approach would be is that, the state of Oregon, like a lot of things are getting pushed to the states, at least currently, to deal with, right? The state of Oregon would say, we're going to make 20% or 10% of our PPEs always be made in the United States, right? And, the other 80% can be made offshore, right? And so we have a bunch of factories we work with in Vietnam or wherever, and say we started a company. We took the people we had there and continued to make PPE, and it represented like 5 or 10% of our output, but the other 80% came offshore. I understand the cost effectiveness there. If and when we ever get back in the situation, we would have the machines and the people and everything ready. If we need to ramp up, it would be infinitely easier than what we had to deal with 3 months ago when we started this, and so much cheaper and so much faster, and we'd be ready to go. But you just realize that this is going to get legislated between 10 years and infinity. It's just never going to happen, right? And so the common sense approach, which is that, right, is it's just never going to happen. And we had an opportunity to talk to our state senator about this, and the governor, and you start discussing this thing, and they look at you like it's never going to happen. It's a great idea that's never going to happen. Or it's such a huge push to make this work. I mean, Lewis, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, imagine a state telling a hospital that they're going to have to buy. A private hospital, they have to buy this percent of their PPE from a domestic source. I mean, great idea, but
God, it seems so easy though.
Yeah, I'm surprised that there's not more. I mean, that just seems like such a glaringly. I mean, yes, getting anything done through any sort of political process is extremely difficult. But like, you'd think that this would be a clarifying moment for a lot of people, and it seems like such an obvious.
Right. To me, we wouldn't outsource our munitions to China. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's
we wouldn't
like
have bullets made in China for our army.
Like,
it wouldn't happen. It should be the same exact
it's
thing.
like the same thing, like all the lobbying for like critical minerals, right? It's like there are these like small list of like rare earth metals that are really important. Really important for like all sorts of like electronics manufacturing and like weapons manufacturing and whatever. And there's this big push, even though we're not capable of economically producing these things relative to China, to like open up mining for these things, because it's, a geopolitical liability to have all these things coming from some other part of the world. Right. And it's like, it's hard to separate what part of that push is just driven by mining industry and what part of it is actually real. But I mean, it's like, makes sense, like I'm not in favor of mining, but like, like maybe you guys have a point here.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, that's the long and short of it. I might go on and on. I don't want to bore you guys with the details.
It's like, I don't know. I'm just like so impressed with everything you guys did, man. It's so cool. Just like,
it was a great coincidence. We had experience actually sewing things, which is a kind of a dying thing in the U.S. I think I put to work again. So.
And so you think you're done with it for good?
Well, you tell me. COVID's cured, right? I don't think this is gonna be a problem anymore. So I don't think we need to worry about it.
I'm packing up a van tonight to head to Tulsa.
Right? What's
COVID's over. When all this broke out, how were you guys? What were your thoughts? What were you doing? Like how did it unfold? Just like on a personal, like outside of IR, how did it go down for you guys individually?
I think Lewis and I are in the same boat, that nothing really, and probably, I don't know, maybe a lot of people are like this, nothing really changed that much. I mean, Hood River wasn't a hot spot.
Yeah, but like you're homeschooling your kids and stuff. How does it not change?
We're not homeschooling anybody. If you mean them going out and skating in the front yard for 8 hours a day, it was homeschool. It was pretty easy. Chelsea asked us about homeschooling the other day, and I was like, "What?"
God,
you're
dude.
Kidding.
Yeah, you need a couple 4-year-olds, dude.
Yeah. No, our kids are old enough; they go out and skate on their own.
Oh man. Well, it was epic here. It was an epic change of everything, I mean,
most of my kids can kickflip now, so.
My kids can't. My kids can't shred on a bike now. They've gotten way better at their bike skills. So.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, definitely, my whole schedule, everything that we were doing changed, and just God, dude, I just remember having to lay off our nanny, who we've had for 4 years, full time, and just, it was not, dude. It was big, life altering offering thing here in the Grace household for sure. And then, so there's a movement here. How do you fit into the movement? Like as Outdoor Alliance or Immersion Research, where do you guys, how are you navigating that?
Yeah, it's it's definitely a time for reflection on a lot of this stuff. And I think that, thinking about how we pursue diversity, equity, inclusion, as Outdoor Alliance, as an outdoor recreation community. I think it's something that's been, quite on our minds for a while before this. And we've been sort of, doing some training and doing some thinking and, trying to get more involved with partner organizations that are really immersed in this space. But, obviously for us, it's, it adds a lot of urgency to this kind of efforts, I think. Just trying to think about, what we're doing here and how we make sure that the efforts we're undertaking are, accruing to everybody's benefit and not just the traditionally white participants in the sports that we represent. It's there's, a lot of historical and present day reasons why people of color don't always feel welcome in the outdoors or safe in the outdoors. And even before before George Floyd was murdered, there was the Ahmaud Arbery. He was just killed out for a run in Georgia. And there's the story about the guy, I think Christian Cooper was his name, who was out birding in Central Park and was accosted by some white woman there. And it's it's definitely, there's stuff for us to do here, right? It's not just some other issue. It's not just about police violence. It's about systemic racism. And, I think we have to take a hard look at, how that has an effect in our space. It's there's stuff for us to do here for sure, but it's hard, it's hard to, be productive participants in this process. And I think it's, it's meant to be hard, right? I think it's not just something that you can check a box. It's we gotta wrangle with these issues and really do some soul searching about what we can do to be part of making things better.
Yeah, it's challenging. For me, it's full disclosure. Where I live, it's I'm like a loaf of Wonder Bread in a field of snowflakes. You know what I mean? Everywhere around me is white. And so, I'm just doing a lot of listening. I'm doing a lot of listening, trying to figure out, just put myself out of my comfort zone as much as I can. Are people calling Outdoor Alliance or calling Immersion Research saying, what are you going to do about this? What's your statement? How is it in that regard?
I don't know. I feel we were kind of early coming out with a statement. But a statement's, that's kind of the easy part.
Yeah, we definitely got people asking what our thoughts were on the subject.
How do they phrase that? How does that come in?
Well, yeah. So, they're what's your policy? What are you going to do? What's your policy? And I think one of our staff, I think, posted the black thing on Instagram, the black square, and I think someone said this is pretty weak. What you guys give it some more thought. And so, as a business owner, right, you like to have your plan and your course you're going to take, and when things don't, you get a deviation or a kink in that, you tantrum. Or at least I tantrum, right? So this becomes a thing, and I start tantruming I just don't want to. It's not what I had scheduled for this week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you really, obviously you have to calm down and start paying attention to what the hell's going on. And people are writing us and asking us what we're thinking about this. And so at least IR, we talked about it amongst our staff a bunch, and actually I reached out to Philip Curry from Astral, who's pretty up on this kind of thing, and Geltman. I called Geltman. We talked about it a few times, and just sort of wondering what this means for us. And you're tempted to be like, I know some people wrote on Instagram, you're like, well, if black people want to kayak or whatever, they just go kayak. I mean, we're not doing anything to stop them from kayaking, and it's a social or cultural thing, and if you even just scratch the surface of this, you realize that's entirely missing the point. And the point is, and I don't know if Lewis, you pointed this out, or someone I was talking with, they were like, can you imagine being a black paddler going to West Virginia to go kayaking? And no, I mean,
I'm scared to go to West Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, there are places like that we go, right? That are like, they're like fucked. It's like, how do you feel driving through? Like, have you ever driven through like Sandpoint, Idaho, or someplace like that? It's like,
yeah, Milwaukee, getting dinner. You go in to get dinner, and you're like, oh, oh shit, this is definitely not where I need to be right now. And you realize this is, while paddle sports, we have limited tools at our disposal, it is still an issue that we have to think about in our sport. I mean, when you really step back, you're like, yeah, until we can fix this, our sport is broken in some way. You know what I mean? Until and you wonder why we don't have people of color in the industry, and that's probably one of the bigger reasons when it comes down to it.
And it's hard. I guess something I've been thinking about too, or was thinking about this morning, it's just like, what do we do? Like, it's a hammer factor, it's like, I mean, we have stuff to do, but it's just so hard to know, I mean, I feel like we've had a lot of, a bit of soul searching about, particularly our early days of like really not doing very well with having women on the podcast. Right. And it was like, part of what we recognized is that like, we can't, it's not fair to, have women come on the show and be like, you're here to talk about women's issues. Tell us about that, And it's like, I think what we kind of realize is we just have to like really make a concerted effort to make sure we're having, a lot of women guests on to talk about like whatever. And it's like, I feel like, for us to do that same approach with, trying to have a more, like racially diverse set of guests or voices on a podcast, it's like, it's hard when there's, not a lot of, diversity in the sport. But I think that's something that we should, think about. It's just like, how do we, so I mean, we do have people on from like the outdoor industry more broadly, or like we've had like Doc Rocco on, or like, like I think just thinking about, even if it's not to talk about like equity issues, like just trying to do a better job having like a more diverse set of guests. I don't know. I don't know. It's probably not a conversation we need to have like on the air, but I mean, I think we should give it some thought, like how we can make the podcast part of the solution here. I mean, it's like, we're obviously just a tiny drop in the bucket, but
dude, I'm all about it.
There's something for us,
Yeah, I'm all about it. Problem is I know 2 black kayakers. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm happy to bring anybody of color on the show. It's just, I don't know how to do it,
Totally, I know. And it's like, it's just hard because it's like, I don't think it's fair to like expect those guys to come on and be like, all right, you're here as like the voice of like the black kayaker.
Exactly. Exactly.
Go. Start talking.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. A lot of listening. That's where I'm at. Just a lot of listening, and I don't know. That's definitely something we'll have to revisit. We'll see if some people in our audience have some opinions or some ways to help us do that. Pretty much.
I feel like we had some there was some wasn't there like there's like an outside article. I mean, there's certainly like plenty of folks who are writing about this issue like more broadly in outdoor, just like the outdoor industry or outdoor sports, and maybe we could try and see if somebody who's like already immersed in that kind of writing or that kind of thinking wants to come on and have that conversation with us at some point.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I pointed this out. We wrote a statement for Facebook and our website, whatever. But I said that there. But this is an issue for kayak. Yeah, but this is an issue just for kayaking. The entire outdoor industry is overwhelmingly white, right? I mean, it's an issue that needs to be addressed in a much broader scope than just kayaking.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. I don't know. I think it's something we got to revisit. Like, I think the important part of it is to continue to bring it up and bring, not let it just kind of get pushed to the side as something, something. Well, I'm not. I don't share those beliefs, so it's nothing I need to worry about.
Yeah, totally. And it's been interesting. Like, I feel like what's something interesting to me is just watching, just like the rise of the term like anti-racist in a way where it's like, to me it's like, I think the intent behind that is that it's not enough just to be like not racist. It's like you have to like actively be engaged in dismantling these structures of white supremacy, and like it makes a lot of sense. I just started reading this book, it's called Black Faces, White Spaces by Carolyn Finney, about sort of like the relationship between like the Black community and the outdoors, but I haven't gotten very far yet, but it's on my reading list.
You have to give us a report on that in 6 months when we record again. All right, moving on. We have a lot in the outdoor space to talk about. Lewis, can you fill the airwaves here for a second while I work on getting Kevin Colburn patched in here about some of the things going on, exciting things on the outdoor policy front?
Yeah, man. So I feel like we missed just like the craziest turn of events in our 6-month hiatus here with this Great American Outdoors Act. So, for just like an unholy number of years, the outdoor recreation community, the conservation community, hunters and anglers, basically everybody who cares about getting outdoors has been working on, first reauthorizing the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and then later finding permanent funding for LWCF. Like what LWCF does is it takes a portion of the revenue from offshore oil and gas leasing and makes that money available for recreation and conservation projects like ecosystem remediation, everything, and then everything from like baseball diamonds to like backyard trail systems to like river access points. Like LWCF paid for the launch site at BZ Corner here on White Salmon, like the takeout for the truss, the put in for the middle.
So this means we're for offshore drilling in Florida.
We're not. This is not about being for it. This is about saying if we're going to do this, which we're already doing, the government is taking in revenue from that stuff.
Right.
And it's like we're saying, like, look, if you're doing this, we're taking that revenue and, paying back the environment for some of the harm we're causing by doing this.
So why not? Just play a devil's advocate here. Why not just take the oil off the coast of Florida rather than getting it from Saudi Arabia or Alaska, or Saudi Arabia, someplace where at least we'll get some kickback from it?
We're not saying don't. It's what drilling's happening. What we do going forward. Yes, like God willing, we're gonna ramp this stuff down at some point and move on to clean energy solutions. And at that point, we'll have to find some other source of funding for recreation and conservation projects, and that's fine. Like that's a good problem to have.
And this is kind of how I was baiting this, because if everything goes right, this is going to be a dwindling source of revenue over the next 10 years, right?
God willing,
fossil fuels are. So what's going to replace this? Like what's?
I don't know what the I don't know what the accounting is, but like however many billions of dollars come in through revenue, it's $900 million a year that are specifically now going to the Land and Water Conservation Fund. So
it's not a percentage,
we got a long way to go.
Amount.
It's a fixed amount.
Okay.
Before we get any deeper into this, I would like to welcome Kevin Colburn, Stewardship Director for American Whitewater, to the Hammer Factor. Hey, Kevin, what's up?
Hey, guys. Not much.
Sorry, we got on some tangents there early in the show, but we're kind of back on script now. So
a lot to talk about these days.
Yeah.
We're going to start with Apex Watercraft and move on from there.
So let me before we get into Kevin, let me just finish catching us up on GAOA, and then we can Kevin can.
What's GAOA?
So GAOA is Great American Outdoors Act, which is permanent funding for the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Like right now, $900 million a year allegedly goes into this account in the General Treasury that is available for Congress to spend for the purposes of the program, but Congress has to spend it. And typically every year they spend about half of that $900 million, about $450 million. Trump's budget.
What did they do with the other half?
it's just like gone in the ether of like the accounting of the federal government. I mean, it's just redirected towards other stuff, and like it's there on paper, but in reality, it's, you know, being spent on whatever. So, you know, Trump releases his budget in February, reduces LWCF spending, you know, not the authorized 900 million, not the sort of historic 450 million, but like $20 million, like basically zeroes out LWCF spending. 2 weeks later, there's like Donald Trump tweets about this, and he's like, I want Congress to pass a bill that fully funds LWCF and funds the maintenance backlog on public lands. Thanks, Senator Gardner and Senator Daines. So,
What?
Cory Gardner in Colorado, Republican senator, like on the ropes, you know, probably going to lose in the fall. Steve Daines, Republican senator in Montana, tough re-election fight against former governor Steve Bullock, like two of the most vulnerable Republican senators in the country in tough re-election fights in like very heavily pro-public lands states. And so Trump's like, all right, like these guys have convinced him that in order to help their re-election chances, he's got to like do this thing and pass this big conservation bill. You know, so this whole thing is about, I mean, kind of about getting Gardner and Daines reelected. But like before we get too cynical about this, it's like
that's how all this stuff works.
That's how a lot of it works, but also like we made that happen, right? It's like we, as an outdoor recreation community, as a conservation community, and hunters and anglers, everybody else, we made those guys feel like they have to deliver something here to offset their otherwise abysmal conservation records, or they're going to get run out of office. And so like they're going to Donald Trump and they're Mitch McConnell and they're like, you got to pass this thing or like I'm going to lose. Like I can't just keep like voting to destroy NEPA and, you know, fighting off wilderness bills. Like I got to like throw these guys something. And like this is the thing. So like, I mean, it's easy to just be cynical about it. It's also a demonstration of the political power when we like make this into a thing, you know? So anyway, so this whole thing was about to like go to the Senate floor. It was about to pass in early March, and then everything just went like totally sideways with the coronavirus. And now, you know, finally they've returned to it in the Senate this week, and it just passed Tuesday. So that, I mean, just like such a miraculous big thing that this happened. And, you know, we got to get it through the House still. We definitely have work to do to make that happen. But just like...
Why is that? I mean, the House would seem to be a slam dunk. I guess not, though. What's the obstacle there?
I mean, one is that, you know, the Democrats know that, you know, McConnell now wants this, that this is something that's going to help the reelection chances of those Republicans. And like, you know, they have a point of leverage here, and we have to like make them understand that like, let's just take yes for an answer and pass this thing. Like, do not play politics with this thing. Like, let's get it done. I mean, I think the other thing is that, you know, the Republicans in the Senate, you know, they're not worried about the coronavirus and about Black Lives Matter. Like they're just like whatever. And in the House, I think they're significantly more attuned to the perception that like what they should be doing right now is working on, you know, these like bills to end police violence and you know, respond to the coronavirus. And so like I think there's a little bit more trepidation about doing something that at least ostensibly feels a little disconnected from that. And I think, you know, the message for us needs to be like, you know, timing is timing. Like if you need to wait a little later to do this, you know, you can wait a little, but like you got to get this done. Like we got to take yes for an answer. Don't use this as like something to try to extract leverage for something else. Like pass this thing.
Lewis, I'd say too, you mentioned LWCF being part of the Great American Outdoors Act, but it also has $9.5 billion for the maintenance backlog on public lands, so roads and trails primarily. And that's a really big deal. It's spread out over 5 years. And it started out as just focused on the parks because like there's just a better lobby for the parks. And a bunch of us, including OA, like pushed for inclusion of the Forest Service and the other agencies, and now the Forest Service has 15% of it. And what that'll do is it'll free up more money for trails. It'll lead to trail maintenance, but then it'll free up opportunities to basically improve the trail system for like mountain biking and hiking and getting to rivers. And yeah, I think it'll just be a really good thing for water quality, just good.
Yeah, and just like, I mean, that was the other part of the story is like, all of the wrangling that, we did with a bunch of partners to get the Forest Service included in this thing. Like, as Kevin was saying, like, that was not a given. And just, I mean, to like shake, hundreds of millions of dollars loose from the money tree for the Forest Service like that just doesn't happen. And so, the fact that we're so close to getting this thing done it's sick. It's a big deal.
Aren't there some protections, some wild and scenic river protections in this Great American Outdoors Act as well? Or am I confused on that front?
I don't think so.
Nothing.
No.
So, is this not a standalone bill, or is this attached to something else? Like, why can't Congress just take this one issue up, not attach it to anything, and just hit the ringer on it and be done with it? I mean,
that's what's happening. It's like the GAOA bill is LWCF and deferred maintenance like together, and it's moving as its own thing right now, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah, the House could pass the identical version, send it to the president. It could be done. Yeah,
I know that the path to actually get it into law or to get it passed, when I was lobbying for LWCF, it was, God, there was talk about it getting attached to some roads bill and to a million different things and how it was going to be done, and just, I mean, to see it as a standalone thing, I mean, I don't think anybody was thinking that was going to happen. I mean, maybe they were.
And I mean, what was that, like a year and a half ago?
Billy Hearn saw that coming, by the way.
Billy Hearn is the Nostradamus.
So that's exciting. So write to your congressman, tell him to get it done, get it done, get it done, get it done. Don't dink around on it, get it done. Quit stalling, get it done. Don't attach it to anything else, get it done. No excuses, get it done.
That's right.
Am I right? Okay.
That's right.
All right.
Where do we stand in Oregon with this?
Merkley and Wyden were both huge supporters. I would say, I mean, the House, I mean, there's 5 Democrats and 1 Republican in the House in Oregon. And your buddy, Greg Walden there in Hood River, who lives like a block up the street from Dirty Fingers and does not have the most sterling record on conservation issues. You might want to have a chat with him if you see him around town.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'll talk to Greg.
So Kevin,
I actually sat next to him on a flight one time. He was like.
I mean, it's Hood River. You see the guy he's around everywhere.
Yeah,
I mean,
you recognize him when you see him.
Yeah, it's not like it's like Mayberry. I mean, it's not hard. No.
So Kevin, throwing this over to you, there is a big forest revision plan going on for Nantahala and Pisgah. And I believe we're about to end, the comment deadline is coming up soon, within a couple, maybe a week or something. I'm not exactly sure.
The 29th. June 29th is the comment deadline.
Okay, so can you kind of unpack what's in this and what's relevant to the paddling community?
Sure. Yeah. Well, the Nantahala-Pisgah, so it's National Forest Service land. It basically covers a big chunk, 1.1 million acres of the western part of North Carolina. You can think of the western end being like Chioa, Hiwassee, like almost to the Ocoee, basically, and then east out to Wilson Creek. So it includes a whole bunch of great whitewater, Nolichucky, North Fork French Broad, the Pigeons, Linville, Watauga. It's like whitewater mecca for the southeast, basically. So it's great. Great landscape, super important to paddlers. And the forest plan is basically the governing guidance document for the Forest Service here for the next 15 to 20 years. So it's kind of a big deal. And then they'll do another plan. But it's kind of your, once every 15 to 20 years, you get a chance to nudge the Forest Service in a new direction. So that's what's that's what's been going on. We've been part of a collaborative group working on this for the last 6 or 7 years, and we're just about to send in a really big collaborative letter with like lots of different interests in it, with lots of support for recreation. We'll send that in here next week, and it's been a really cool process so far.
What do you like and not like about this revision plan?
What I like about it, it's, for one thing, it has all the alternatives that they present are not polarizing. We really encourage them to do win-win alternatives. So like you look at the alternatives and it's like everybody gets something in all the alternatives. So it's sort of like it asks the question of how do you want to get a good outcome, not how do you maximize your own interest. So that was cool. It kind of just took some of the fire out of the conversation and people had to think substantively. They definitely included a lot of discussion of recreation for the first time. Like they acknowledge mountain biking exists, they acknowledge rock climbing and paddling exists. We're just there, which is cool. And I'd say there's a lot of emphasis on ecosystem restoration, and like I just think the forest will be a little better off after all this. There's definitely a little, I've been calling it like unnecessary roughness when it comes to recreation. If the Nantahala-Pisgah were a national park, it would be the third most visited national park. Something like 5 to 6 million visitors a year, growing at an astronomical rate. And it's just a really popular place to go. There's people day hiking and doing all, swimming and fishing and just doing everything. So we really wanted the Forest Service to take a real like positive view of recreation and say, all right, lots of people are coming because it's cool. How can we like make this sustainable and kind of provide this service to the public? And they largely do that, but there's some kind of weird stuff. Like they put some downward pressure on climbing, and I mean every user group kind of has these little downward pressure points in the plan of like, there'll be no new horse trails in wilderness. We're not going to have a climbing policy. We're going to, put some limits on, mountain biking on off-system trails that are new. The Chattooga boating closures are still in there, and this should probably be eased at this point. So, does it kind of, as a recreation community, we have conflicts more with the Forest Service, whereas all the other interest groups like wildlife and timber and conservation groups, they have conflicts with each other, and the Forest Service is kind of trying to solve those conflicts, whereas our conflicts are with like the managers that just don't really want to welcome us to do our thing in the woods.
Just break down the climbing thing real quick. Like what is
Sure.
what is the Forest Service issue with putting this little I guess stamp on, we got to watch this. Like, what's their issue?
We don't really know. We've talked to them about it a lot. They wanted to do a future climbing management plan, and we're like, no, like we've been talking about this for 6 years. Like, just put it in the plan. Just have a fixed anchor policy that allows fixed anchors. I think part of the problem with climbing with them is that climbing does often traverse, rare or sensitive habitats. They're using non-system trails, to get to the base of the cliff usually. And then you have people bolting that are not, government sanctioned people that are putting fixed anchors out there. So it all kind of pushes some management buttons with the Forest Service, but there's good ways to address this that are used all across the Forest Service nationwide. And for whatever reason, our forest here just doesn't really want to deal with it. So I've had a lot of conversations with Access Fund and Climbers Coalition locally here to just try to get the Forest Service to do the right thing.
And is there a place on American website or American Whitewater where we can go voice our opinion on this?
Yes, there will be by the time anyone hears this.
Okay.
After your extensive editing process, we'll have it up.
Yeah. All I got to do is edit out a little pre-show banter in regards to Lewis. But outside of that, it should be good to go.
Yeah, we'll have an action alert up for sure.
One more thing, Kevin, before we jump into Gauley Fest, which I'm sure is, we'll talk about that here in a second. what is going on with Nolichucky Wild and Scenic? I believe there's some relevant new news happening in that front.
Yeah, well, much like the Great American Outdoors Act, I think there's an opportunity to get Nolichucky legislation introduced here in North Carolina and in Tennessee as well. So, I mean, I don't have any big new updates other than we're working on it. You know, we have draft legislation, we have a new map that Jack Henderson made for us. We have meetings with county commissioners kind of in the future. Like most things, the whole COVID situation really threw a monkey wrench in our ability to sit down with people and meet and have those one-on-one conversations that are important. But I think this summer we're just going to do another big push. You know, we need people to be reaching back out to their congressmen and senators in North Carolina and Tennessee. Even if they've done so before, it's a great time to be like, hey, what's the story with the Nolichucky? You know, we really would love to see a wild and scenic bill. That would be really helpful. You can go to nolywildandscenic.org and do that. Just an AW site we created for the campaign.
What about how long has LWCF been in the works, Lewis? I mean, getting this through the Senate, how many years has it been?
God, they all just blur together to me at this point. I mean, like, as long as I've been out of school and working, we've been working on LWCF. Kevin?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
I think, yeah, a long time.
Yeah, and I think that's important when people, you know, it's easy to get fatigued with voicing the way you feel about Noli Wild and Scenic or whatnot, but it's just so important to just keep that pressure up, because they're compiling that data. You know, all the aides and all the people helping the congressmen and senators, they're compiling that, sending it
Totally.
out.
There's just like such an element of just like you just gotta like do all this work, and then when the stars align to actually like finish something, it's just like it's kind of unpredictable, and like you just kind of never know when it's gonna happen. But it's like you just got to do all that work so that then when the weird political stars align and like Trump tweets about it for some bizarre political reason, you're like, all right, we're in. And it's like
yeah. My visual for that is you have to be standing at the door pushing on it on the off chance someone unlocks it, right. And then it'll swing open. But like if you're not pushing, and it's hard to do that for 10 years. And here at AW we always say, we just laugh like, yeah, everything takes a decade if you're lucky. Like,
so what are you guys going to do when this passes? Do you have some kind of... I mean, is Hooters open yet, or is it... like strippers with the face masks as good, or for you guys, or...
Oh, well, it's...
No, so, I mean, will there be like some kind of celebration? It seems like a landmark event for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, there would be. I heard on a call the other day that Trump wanted to sign this thing 4th of July at Mount Rushmore.
The LWCF bill?
Yeah.
God, I love that guy.
Would you go to an event and shake Trump's hand if you were invited for this ceremony?
Not a fucking chance.
Oh, even if he signed LWCF?
No.
Okay. Well, there's that.
Did you go, Kevin?
Probably.
Look, set aside your differences and just go get the damn thing signed, right? Look, you got to figure out where you have common ground to get things done sometimes, right?
How I feel.
That's a more mature attitude.
I know how Grace feels. Grace would build a golden bridge.
Exactly. It would be just golden and beautiful and huge. Tremendous.
What do you think the furthest Donald Trump has ever been from a car? Like 100 yards?
Oh, God, I've got so much Donald Trump
It is a
fatigue.
golf cart.
36 years straight. 36 years straight. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Kevin. 36 years straight there's been a Golly Fest.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And on year 37, there's no Golly Fest. What's your problem?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What are you going to do?
No, honestly,
lucky number, we avoid it. That's it.
Honestly, I mean, it had to have been an incredibly hard decision. Just kind of tell me how you guys contemplated all this, how it all came together, and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing we had to do was deal with like our board meeting in May, and then Deerfield in June, Deerfield Festival in Massachusetts, and a bunch of smaller events. So we were just kind of canceling things all along that were, a month out, a month or two out, kind of right before the last time we could, basically. And then it just got to a point where we couldn't see a future where we could have 3,000 or 4,000 people get together in a field in a rural community and ensure that event and have that event be welcomed by the community and have it be safe. And, for us, it just made more sense to just call it. I mean, it's in keeping with pretty much every other event that I've seen. There's some things were initially rescheduled for the fall. A lot of events were, but, most events, I think even those are probably going to be canceled and moved to next year. So we just couldn't see how we could do it.
You guys raised a lot of money from this, right?
Yeah. I mean, we get several hundred memberships every year. These are people that come back and renew every year. It's one of our biggest fundraisers of the year. So it really sucks for us to not do it.
I mean, I think a lot of paddlers just see this as like a kayaking equivalent of like a juggalo gathering, but there's actually more to it. There's like dude punching some dude in the face. There's like a fire with something burning that shouldn't be burning. Graham Seiler is on top of a van.
Naked.
Partially clothed.
Everything you say is also true, but it's also a fundraiser. And a great way for us to just connect with people, and just hang out. Like, we like to be part of the community too as staff, so we're all bummed personally. Certainly there's no upside for our organization. It sucks, but what are you going to do? It's a global pandemic, it's just a weird year. I don't know. I wish I had something profound to say other than we just couldn't figure out a way to do it that made sense. So we're going to do something online, the best we can. We're going to remind people that, geez, this thing's important to us. The memberships that we get are important to us, and hopefully people.
Like a Zoom Gauley Fest.
We could do that.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm being a smartass. Don't.
Are there any plans?
For like a week.
Are there any plans in place to bring? I mean, like, membership drives or any way to replace that revenue? Have you guys discussed anything in that circle?
Yeah, we want to do all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah, we want to have it. We want to have it be an online event. We want it to be fun. We want to have a membership drive. Like, yeah, it's hard to pivot, to that when you're busy with everything else. But we're definitely going to do it. Yeah, we'll make it fun. We'll do something cool. We'll do some giveaways, and we still have product to share and stories to tell, and do some fun stuff on social media. We'll do what we can.
Put together a site where a bunch of vendors can have like a special weekend sale, right? Because a lot of vendors take advantage of that. And, you could have like a virtual Jared Styler. I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah, I mean, it's of all the events, clearly Golly Fest is one you just can't replace online, right? Like, we're going to do our best to be really fun, but like, the thing about Golly Fest is always the thing that you can't foresee. There's just this funny chaos factor to it. That's
a certain je ne sais quoi.
You could say that, I suppose. Yeah. Is that a kind of liquor? If so,
man, no Golly Fest.
Yeah. But, one of the things we are doing is we're still pushing for releases to occur, and we're trying to reschedule a bunch of the spring canceled releases for late summer and fall. So, that'll be cool. There'll still be Golly releases. People will still be able to boat and travel up there, hopefully. Chihuahua releases, I'm working on getting those rescheduled. We have some cool releases on the Black Canyon of the Bear in Idaho that were canceled that we're going to get in August, maybe August and September, which is we can never do in a normal year. So I don't know. We're just doing the best we can to make it, have lots of opportunities to spread out and get outdoors on the water, and, not have any weird closures in place that don't need to be there. So doing the best we can.
So the dam managers and all of that kind of thing, they're receptive to this, adding releases later and that kind of thing.
Dam managers are like bears and all other people. They're all different, like they're just different. Like some are really cool and are like, yeah, of course we're going to reschedule, and others like won't even reply to emails. So we'll see.
Great. So what are you gonna do about green race? Are you still hoping that's gonna pan out?
We're racing.
Racing.
We're doing the upper yacht race.
We're racing.
Really?
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, about
That's crazy.
Upper yacht is space. You can really there's enough room to spread out in the upper yacht race that it's not. It's not that there's plenty of parking. There's plenty of place to gather at the start. It's spread out over several hours. The start times. So.
There's a Noli race tonight.
It's hackable.
Yeah, Noli race tonight. Yeah, I think we about 3 weeks ago. I mean, we were just glued to what the guidance from the governor is. There was nothing from the top down from the CDC. I could go into that all day long, But we were just trying to navigate everything, and finally, it just became abundantly clear that there was going to be no direction. So I, about 3 weeks ago, started reaching out to business owners in Saluda, some people from the local community, and basically was just like, hey, you care if we have this race? Do you want to see this happen or not see this happen? And overwhelmingly, everyone was like, yeah, you should definitely do it. You definitely should have it. Yeah, I don't see why you'd cancel it. And once kind of we got that blessing from the general community and whatnot, it's a 1 minute interval race. There's things that we're going to do to change up. We're going to do some a lot of online things to try and limit the number of spectators that go in there. And we're going to change up the awards party. It's going to be like a drive-in awards party. We're not going to have central fires and booths and stuff like that. We're adjusting it. But, we're going to race. It is a race. So, no, we're stoked. But the festival front, I don't know how you manage that. I don't know how you manage that. But if the river's releasing, that's what it's all about anyway. So technically, there really is a Gauley Fest. So
it's always a Gauley season. Yeah, we'll be back next year.
Yeah.
We'll make it cool next year.
Was there anything else you'd like to add, Kevin? Anything else on your mind you'd like to get off?
Not much. Just, thanks to everybody for rolling with COVID and this event cancellations. They're a bummer, but, keep supporting AW.
Yeah.
For sure. Thanks, guys.
Yep. No problem.
And get a comment in on Nantahala-Pisgah. There's, I guess I didn't really talk about what people should say, but you can check out the AW site, but there's a great chance to increase the number of eligible wild and scenic rivers and ensures the rivers won't be dammed. It kind of puts them on the list for future designation. And one that was left off that people love is the North Fork of the French Broad. So I'm really trying to focus people on that. It's just a classic piece of whitewater, real close to Asheville and Brevard, and it just gets a lot of use. It's super cool. So the Forest Service didn't pick that one. I don't think they really understood the recreational value. So that's something paddlers can do is tell the Forest Service about how certain rivers, especially the North Fork, are really cool recreationally. So that'd be great. I'd love it if people would do that. I've been talking about it for years and need your support.
Get an AW membership. Appreciate it, Kevin.
Yeah. See you guys.
Thanks, Kevin.
We'll see ya.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right, guys. Well, I have been in these forest revision meetings, and something that I think a lot of people don't know is a lot of times the forest managers just don't know what you're doing in the woods or what your interests are. And if you tell them, they're going to be way more accommodating and way more into it than a lot of times they just want to know. They just legitimately want to know and don't know. So it's just super important to comment. So does anybody know any of the behind-the-scenes details of the transfer of the North Fork Championship to new ownership?
It just happened. I don't know.
I do, but I'm not sure how many of those are meant to be divulged. So maybe we should leave that one for Alec.
You are so cryptic.
I just got to make sure that people don't stop telling me things. I'm gonna end up like Weld just hears the industry gossip, and it's straight from his ears to Hammer Factor microphone.
I got some
just
good
don't wanna end up
gossip
on the
too.
Weld.
I had a very good source within the industry write me about a bunch of stuff we were talking about in the last couple episodes during our little hiatus here. None of which I'm allowed to really discuss.
How does this work? Oh, come on, give me some broad generalizations.
Well, all right, let me pose a question for you. What do you think is going to happen with Dagger? We had a little over-under going.
Yeah, if you'll recall,
Yeah.
I took a lot of shit last August for saying 8 months.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what the Pelican is going to do with Whitewater. So, I don't know. What did you hear, Weld? Through the grapevine, unsubstantiated.
Let's not go back into this hole until we have something to actually. I felt like that was just like a month of just like us being just like beaten with like socks full of rocks. Like
I will say Chucky Morris,
I still got bruises from that
bless his
beating.
heart, who is probably one of the longest-serving Confluence sales reps in the history of Confluence, who threatened to kick me in the nuts when he saw me at the trade show in Oklahoma about the whole Dagger thing, is now working for Piranha. Hi, Chucky.
Oh, God. This is going nowhere fast. Okay, without further ado, let's see if we can call Alec here and get him on and hear about the North Fork Championship. Oh, man. Whitewater, how's business, Weld?
Well, okay. We had a real problem with online sales, or with retail sales rather. I mean, retailers just stopped ordering things. So March, April, which is supposed to be really our biggest months, were mere fractions of what they should be from retail sales. We're picking some of it up from online sales, but retailers represent a big chunk of our business. There's definitely a resurgence going on right now. You're seeing stores, a huge level of excitement going on, and people going in and buying stuff, and stores are ordering things right now. I think the bigger concern is when the recession, if and when the recession and or depression hit, and it goes on for 8, 9, 10, 16, 20 months, how's this going to look in a year? People are really optimistic when they look at the situation at this second, but I don't know that people have really appreciated the economic impact this is going to have on people's discretionary income over the next several years. So I don't know.
This is something we're going to have to talk about on a lot of different shows because it's going to, I agree with you 100%.
The PPE helped us a lot. First of all, it kept people employed. We were able to get our payroll grant through, the complicated algorithm they have by doing that. We were able to do that because we kept people employed making PPE. And we were scrambling for sure. But I don't know. It's a good question.
Time will tell on that one. Moving on, I'd like to welcome Alec Voorhees, Idaho native and new organizer of the North Fork Championship, to the show. How's it going, Alec?
Good. How are you guys?
Good, man.
Good.
Thanks a lot for taking the time to come on over here, and I guess congratulations is in order for taking over the North Fork Championship.
Yeah. It's been good. Pretty crazy times, obviously, but definitely excited for next year to get it going and get back on track. So
backing up, how did it all work when you became the organizer of the race, and how did all that unfold?
Yeah, so like with last year's event, being the World Championship, NFC 8, James and Regan, the previous organizers who's created the event and have made it what it is today. The word kind of got out just before the event that last year was going to be the end of it and the end of NFC. And so going into the event, it was not too many people knew about it, but word was definitely spreading. And then, as soon as the event was over, it was just crazy. once the awards happened and everything. And then my mom actually, right after the event, approached James and was like, hey, we don't want to see this die. If you're open to talking about it, let's meet up. And he was like, no, we've done what we can with it. We're done. Like, thanks for offering, but yeah, we're content with what we've done and stuff. And so then that was kind of it. And I think that he was kind of maybe talking to Red Bull and seeing what was going to happen there, but nothing really ever happened. And so then in October, James messaged us and was like, hey, do you guys want to meet up and see if you guys are still interested and just kind of see what everyone's thinking. And so we met up, and October we all met up and it started to go from there. And then the official takeover, like, it was a lot of back and forth, like kind of lawyers and getting the contract and everything lined up. And so it wasn't until February that it was completely official. And we just started getting to work on it. And so for the first year, they were going to do like a complete handoff and help out and still be there for the event, kind of like just give the blueprint. And actually yesterday we just met up with them and transferred all like the tangible items, like the ramp and the gates and trash cans, fire pits, signage, like all that stuff. Just because the event didn't happen this year, obviously. So we took that over from them. And that's kind of how it all went down. And so, myself, my mom were definitely working on it the most. And then Hayden was in Chile, so he wasn't, my younger brother. He didn't really get a chance to work on anything yet, but that's kind of who's going to be all putting it together for the future. So.
Can you give us any insight into why James and Regan were sort of done doing the event?
Yeah, they just, it started all from scratch. Like for the first 4 years they were just putting all their money into it and losing money at the beginning, and then evening the profits. And then the last few years they've made a profit on it. And it wasn't so much that for them as just like the passion of putting the event on and bringing the community together and just making it like just a cornerstone of the whitewater community. And then because it does take up a lot of time, and just the two of them, they were just kind of getting taxed with it. And they just eventually were like getting to the point in their lives where they want to be able to travel after this taking up 8 years of their lives. It's funny, they would always call it their little 8th grader, because that's how old it is, like just being 8 years and stuff. So they were just kind of ready to kind of move on and kind of be able to travel and do some other things. So
yeah, just to see, for people who haven't been to that event, just like the amount of work that James and Regan put into, every aspect of that, just like, it really shows. And, it's very understandable how, almost a decade of that, he'd be ready to pass the torch.
Yeah, totally.
And so now it's sort of your baby. You got a full year to get ready. Because no event this year. Before we get into what you're going to do next year, how did you make the decision not to do the race this year?
Yeah, so, obviously, so because we took it over in February, like I was just working on it for a month and permits and just kind of getting the crew together and all that stuff. And then when everything just kind of started going down, the main thing that kind of just made me take a break and just like, all right, I'm just going to take a break and just see what happens, was like when the NBA shut down. For like 2 weeks, I was just like, just didn't really know. So I just kind of stopped working on it. And then it took quite a while for us to finally figure out what we were going to do. Our first plan was to actually postpone the event to the end of July, because the good thing with the North Fork is that it's guaranteed water all summer because of the agricultural needs for it. And so that was our original plan. But then after a couple more weeks went on, it was just like, all right, the the impact on sponsors and them like choosing to keep people employed or put out some money to sponsor the event is just like, that was kind of the main kicker that was like, all right, let's just cancel it. And then also with the lack of international paddlers being able to attend, like that's a big part of the event too. And so those were kind of the factors that made us cancel. And then obviously now in hindsight, like there's like just Idaho just this past weekend, like we're in stage 4 of like our opening plan, which is ahead of a lot of other states. And even then the event would probably not want to happen. So end of July, who knows, but at this point there was really nothing you could do.
What does stage 4 look like in Idaho? What's the governor's guidance on there?
It's still social distancing, but like all businesses are open. Nightclubs and light hair salons were open in stage 2. Gyms are open now. Like everything's open. There's a few stores obviously that from the top down are still closed, but for the most part, Idaho's been, just because it's a low population density, it hasn't hit as hard as other places, obviously. And so it's kind of still kind of doing the right thing. And but you can't even tell that it's really going on right now out here.
God, I rolled through. So, I was just like in full lockdown mode for, some months. And I think I got out, went up to Leavenworth finally after like 2 or 3 months. And then like the next time that I had gone, further from my house than like the Little Way in 3 months was to go over the South Salmon like a month ago probably. And we like rolled into Banks on the way up there. And it's just like full Banks Saturday. Like it was like COVID did not exist. Like people were like, are you hugging? I'm like, no. Or like hands. I'm like, are you crazy? Like, what are you doing, man? I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, that's totally how it is right now in Banks. Like, it's just that whole parking lot is just crowded, and everyone's going to the cafe, and it's just like life goes on in Banks.
So you kind of have the opportunity to look at this event with a fresh lens. Are you going to kind of stick to the playbook? Are you going to change some things up in the coming year? What's your internal vision?
Honestly, we don't want to change that much. Like, NFC is NFC for what it is, and like the brand and just the atmosphere and like community that James built with the event, like you don't really need to do that much. Like just take what they did and go with it. But obviously, like there's quite a few things that we want to add and just like bring to the event, and just like because we are like purchasing the event over time, like obviously kind of looking at cutting costs and doing what you can to add to that. That's part of it now. But in terms of like the race and the format and where everything's going to be, like still all that. The last few years, like the Thursday night after the qualifier, there's always been something at the Egyptian Theater downtown. And so the last few years it's been the Whitewater Awards, but before that it was like the Melt Awards, where it was just like Film Fest. And so we're going to go back to that style and just do NFC Film Fest, because James held on to the Whitewater Awards. And so like that Thursday night at the Egyptian, that's such a fun, awesome part of the event. We're just going to keep all that, and then more fun stuff at the park, change some things with camping. The format for next year is going to go back to how it was before the World Championship aspect, and more like we're going to do the top 10 from the year before, 10 invites, and then 10 qualifiers on S-turn again, instead of everybody qualifying. And then also there's going to be a women's division. So the winner from the previous year, and then 4 qualifiers. That was part of the thing to keep with the event. And so, but yeah, everything's just going to stay the same. We're going to add some cool things. Like I'm really excited for a couple ideas that we had, like just some like games in the park, with like the festival, and then just like kind of more kind of merchandise and kind of putting our own spin off that stuff. So it's, I mean, yeah, that's kind of how it's going to be for the next few years until it all just goes smooth and we get it lined up to how we want and stuff.
So backing up, you're going to have 4 women in the main category, like racing Jakes?
There's going to be 5. So
5.
the winner, and then 4 are going to qualify.
Okay.
So,
Sweet. I think that's cool.
Yeah. So more people racing than there has been, just because like last year there were 20 men and 5 women, and then before it was 30 men before the women's division. So we'll add a few more spots there, but want to include as many people and the people that should be paddling and get the field how we want it. So
well, man, I was super psyched when I heard you guys were taking it over and that it was going to go on. The events are such a important part of kayaking, and I'd hate to see that one drop off the radar. So good on you.
Yeah, that was exactly how we felt. Like North Fork is by far my favorite weekend of the year, and it's what I look forward to and train for all the time. Like, so yeah, last year after the event, like, because last year was a tough one for me because like a month and a half before I had dislocated my shoulder for the second time, and so I was like devastated that I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to race, but I just got this massive shoulder brace and cranked it down tight and was able to qualify and make the event, but wasn't just the moves. I wasn't able to pull and do what I needed to. And so I had one of my worst finishes in the main race. And then with it being done like that, I was just like, I remember when the awards were going, I was just devastated, like sitting on this, like, it was like this unicorn inner tube on the ground. And I was just like laying with my head back. Like, it was just awful. Like, I was so bummed for so long. But then, yeah, once they took it over, I was definitely nervous, and it's a big task. And
you're gonna be so nervous.
Yeah, but it's gonna be good. They're with the full handoff and stuff, and then like it's pretty evenly split with like the stuff I'm working on, and then my mom, because a lot of it, she did a lot of graphic design and building websites and a lot of marketing stuff, and she really likes organizing events. So she's probably the biggest motor behind this whole thing. So, yeah, that's
awesome, man. I wanted to ask you how your shoulder's doing. You're
pretty... it's really good. I'm really happy with it. I'm in just over 8.5 months since I got surgery. So,
damn, that's it. Wow. You're charging, eh?
Yeah. For the whole time it felt pretty good. Like, cause I got surgery at the end of September, with a local guy here in Boise who's awesome. Like, tons of kayakers have gone to him. And, it was actually pretty crazy with my shoulder. Cause like typically, when people dislocate their shoulders from a high brace or whatever. But where I actually hurt mine the first time was on Alexandra 2 years ago. Just tucking up and taking the hit. My shoulder was super sore for like 2 months. And then it didn't actually dislocate until Chile off Tres Saltos in October 2018, I guess. And so got an MRI, and it just was like small little tear, but PT, that's what they recommended. And so did that, and then it came out like 6 months later in Jake's at like $4,000.
That's like
not nightmare.
Like one of the scariest stories I've ever heard. Yeah.
It sucked. Yeah. And then just kind of all summer I was like, all right, I'm getting surgery in the fall, and then went and got an MRI again just to see, and it wasn't really showing that much, but basically what the doc did is his name's Dr. Curtin. He's just like, if you feel comfortable, he's like, you've tried to PT and do all this, so he's like, if you feel comfortable with it, I'll just go in there and fix what needs to be fixed, because he couldn't quite tell what was up. But so what actually happened, which is crazy, is it wasn't like a labrum or rotator cuff. It was the like capsule that surrounds the joint. So, which is just like connective tissue. And I had like a tear in the back of it. And so every time it would come out, it's when I would go across my body and rotate like this. and so it would pop out the back, and then it would like I would try to put back in, nothing would happen, and then like like 2 months or like 2 minutes later it would slip back in. But all he did was 4 little sutures in there and good to go. It's a super rare injury, like a lot of like offensive linemen in football and wrestlers and just hard impacts across your body like that. So I think it definitely I think was better than a labrum where they have to drill into the bone and like reattach everything. So it's felt good. Like whole PT process was great, and my PT was super good, and everything felt easy, just like taking it step by step, and so all good now.
That's awesome.
Thankfully, yeah.
What's your paddle length and feather?
I was wondering if that was going to come up.
This is a lititmus test right here. We'll see if this interview makes it to air or not.
Yeah, we'll see if you ever come back on the show right here.
Yeah, I use a 203/30.
Money. Whoop, whoop. All right.
Yeah. And then straight shaft, and then for play boating I use a 200 bent 30. So
sweet.
Yeah.
200 and over, man. It's all good with me.
Yeah.
Tell me about the last few weeks in Idaho. It seems like there's been plenty of water and people around. Have you guys been just crushing out the high water North Fork laps?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's been awesome. So like early this spring, I mean, until the North Fork turned on 2 weeks ago, it was like 800 CFS for three months. Like the reservoir was super low. I didn't paddle it until June, just because I didn't really feel like paddling North Fork at 800 anymore. I used to do it all the time, but now I'm kind of spoiled and I'd rather go do South Fork or something when it's low. But so I was spending a lot of time like up on the South Fork of the Clearwater, like Golden Canyon section, and that's just like a super good thing to have. Kind of, it's like 4 hours north, but it's really similar to the North Fork at comparable flows, a little more natural features, but it gets high every year, which is awesome. So that's definitely a good thing to hit up if you're wanting some high water Idaho boating. And then Hayden and I, we went down to Cali and got 2 laps on Fantasy, which was super sick. And then we were planning on staying in Cali for a bit, but then I got off Fantasy and it was pretty low our second lap, and saw the North Fork is at $5,000 with a lot of rain coming. I was like, Hayden, we're going home. Like it's too good. And so we, came back and paddled and just started getting laps and convinced like Johnny Chase and Tad Dennis to come up. And so the 4 of us have just been doing lots of laps, but so that's been super good. But like my second day boating on the North Fork, we were putting on the top at it was 5,000, and a guy swam out of the nut, which is like one of the worst places to swim. And the day before, actually, I did a boof and houndstooth and just landed really hard and got some whiplash in my neck, and it was kind of sore, but not too bad. Just, I don't know, kind of waterfall neck, but just got a little jarring landing. But then the next day I ended up below Nutcracker, and then as soon as he swam out of the hole, I just ran him over and just told him to hold on to my boat and hold on. It's after Nutcracker, for people that don't know, it's a mile or two of just continuous nonstop North Fork boogie water, which is class 5.
Like 20 miles per hour. You're going 20 miles per hour through that.
Yeah, totally. And so I just had him on the back of my boat, and I was just paddling the whole thing and paddled him all the way down to Disneyland, and then also got his paddle and his boat out of the water.
Were you making him lunch or anything while you're doing this?
Yeah, it was it was just a chill boogie board ride down, you on a riverboard to North Fork. I'm your man. So he was all good. But then 5 minutes later, when I got back in my boat, my neck just seized up super, super bad, and couldn't move it for a week. So I was out of paddling. I was I was so mad, stupid whiplash off of one of the sickest boofs on the river, and then saving someone took me out for a week, but all good. I had to take a week off, but I've been getting lots of laps since then, so it's been good.
Sick, dude.
Yep.
Man. North Fork, it's on. So is there a big crew out there? Or is it just all the local boys right now?
There's quite a few. There, a lot of the KLCG boys. They were out here. They like Jeremy Nash and not sure who all went, but they were going to Middle Kings right now. It's going to be really low, but I didn't want to go. It's too low for me. But yeah, so they were out here, and then people passing through. Good, like solid local crew, but yeah, Banks is full. Tons of people to paddle with, but. Having Johnny and Tad here was pretty sweet, just to go up with the four of us with Hayden and just do T2Bs and just do it that way. So it's been good Banks living.
Sick. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on the show and filling everybody in about the North Fork Championship. Super,
of course.
Super stoked to see how it all unfolds, and good on you, dude. Good on you, man. I think that was a good decision, and I hope that I can make it out next year.
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
So.
Anybody that hasn't been there before should definitely try to make it out, obviously promoting it. But I'm actually pretty excited because, like, this year I was stoked because the feeling that I have is that people are going to be super excited that it was just, like, continuing in the first place after the rumor mill going around that it was going to be done. But now with a year off, like, kind of have some time to really get things lined up. And then with everyone just being stoked to get back together, and by that time hopefully, so should be a good year. Really excited for it.
Well, it sounds like you got it handled, but if there's anything I can help with, feel free to reach out. I remember talking to James back when he was originally starting it and just going over ideas, and it's just sick to see it carrying on.
Yep, totally. I'll take you up on that.
It's a thing.
Yep.
All right, Alec, you guys got anything for Alec before we let him go?
That's it.
All right, man. Well, we'll see you on the river, dude.
Yeah,
awesome.
thanks,
Sounds
dude.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so
Happy
much.
paddling.
Later.
Later. Well, boys, we're at an hour and 40 minutes in. I guess we should wrap this thing up with a little bit of rants and raves.
No viewer mail for the first time ever.
We've got some viewer mail, but I knew we weren't going to have time for it, so we can pack it in later. Now for everybody's favorite segment of the show, our segment here, Rants and Raves. Oh, Lewis.
6 months to not think of anything.
Lewis, you have to have something, dude. I mean, seriously, there has to be something. Lead us off, Lewis.
I gotta lead us off.
Lead us off. I can lead us off if you want.
I have a lot. I just think it feels like so.
You can
it's a lot of pressure when we haven't ranted. It's like I have to rant about the thing that's pissed me off the most in the last 6 months.
Well, you can rant and about 2 or 3 things. I mean, come on, we're at an hour and 40. You know.
I'm gonna rant about. Oh man, it's just all the same things over and over again. One of the things I would like to rant about is people biking with external speakers.
Oh God, dude.
Do not do that.
It's becoming a thing,
headphones.
dude.
It is so obnoxious. If there's anything more obnoxious than that, I'm hard pressed to think of it. Like, nobody wants to listen to your like shitty tinny music like on the trails. Like, just stop. Like, if you have to do that, like, get headphones. Like, inexcusable. No.
That's such a weird statement. I mean, are people doing that so they can hear people around them? It's like a safety thing.
I mean, maybe somewhat. I mean, it's just like, to me, it's like, I just can't imagine just going out into the world with like so little regard for the effect that my presence would have on other people. You know, it's like, are you just like totally oblivious to other people, or like you just think that people don't care and like it's just all.
It's like loud motorcycles.
Loud pipes save lives, man.
No, I'll second that. That is, it's a trend that's on the increase right now too.
You see it skiing for sure. You just might as well write asshole on your helmet. Right?
I agree. I am fully in support of that rant, 100%. You can go into a second one if you'd like, Lewis, or we can come back around you. We can do seconds.
We just keep going until we've got everything off of our chest. I'll let Well go.
Can we stop using emojis?
Now what? Now
I know when you send me the thing with your eyes squirting laughing that you're not, and it's insincere. And you're not laughing. It's just stupid.
What about the shrink emoji?
Is it
shrink emoji?
Is it
It's just dumb.
Is it that specific emoji or just emojis in general?
It's just dumb. I don't get it. It's like no, just stop. Just stop.
That one hasn't vexed me. I don't know. I can kind of see it. I mean, definitely people communicate with me now with like 100s, like showing muscles, you know.
Yeah. It's just so empty. I don't. Do you think Facebook's on its way out? We were noticing the other day how little traffic we get on Facebook versus like Instagram, for instance.
They're the same thing.
I know, but in terms of like a platform, I know I realize it's the same company. Like I think a lot of people genuinely are just throwing in the towel on Facebook.
I quit like 2 years ago. I don't really miss it. The only time I really miss it is when I want to buy or sell something because it sort of supplanted Craigslist in a lot of ways, it seems like.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a pay-to-play. I don't know. It just Can I go into my rant?
Yeah, please.
Okay, because my rant, I'm going to rant about the media. Okay, and Facebook is right in there. And see, you guys think I'm going to rant about like what the media is saying or what they're putting out there, that kind of thing. I'm more going to rant about the monetary model of the media versus the media itself. So in the media, I used to work for a group of TV and radio stations before I got into producing media myself and the whole 9 yards. But in the media, you have a classic rock station, and you do that because you know the demographic that's going to listen to that. So your sales team can go and sell the advertising to the Harley dealership. And you have your soft rock station, so the ad team can look at the demographics and go sell.
First of all, I should, for about 2/3 of our audience, I should point out that radio was something we used to listen to in your cars, and it was broadcast through a tower. And you had these things called rock stations, which I know don't exist anymore. So, but as a business during that time, they were very successful. So go ahead.
But let me back up, because what you're talking about with Facebook is the exact same thing. So, Facebook creates these groups and these echo chambers and whatnot, so an advertiser can target the people in that group. It does no good if you're selling paddle sports gear to a 25-year-old to spend money to send ads to a 60-year-old woman, or vice versa. The digital era allows you to do that and pinpoint more. So, but what happens is it's become a race to the bottom, and Facebook has seen it. Instagram's going to see it. All the free advertising, you're going to see it, because what they're doing is they're not doing something nefarious. Fox isn't saying what its headlines are to be nefarious. They're trying to make money off of that model, and that model is just, it sucks. I think we've even talked about this on the show. I'm just going to rant about the model of advertising. There has to be a better way for publishers, creators of content, to make money than advertising. That's just a shit way for the business to operate.
It's such an interesting conversation, Grace. Like, I feel like it's almost like there's just like too much information and too much ability to like segment your audience and like track how much people are, how people are responding to things. And it's like you see it in politics too, right? Like there's no market for just like genuine leadership. It's like everything is like poll tested and like demographically split, and you know exactly who you have to reach, how you have to reach them, what you have to say to that group. And it just like cuts out, what's genuine. And it's like you think about the same thing with news, right? It's like instead of just having, editors telling people what they think is important, it's like what's going to get clicks, what's going to what's going to drive engagement with advertising. So
yeah,
I don't know.
The thing is crazy.
Buy subscription and pay for media,
Right. All these brainiacs at these places, they had this great system of targeting ads. I look at a pair of Astral shoes and I buy a pair of Astral shoes. I proceeded to get served ads for Astral shoes for 6 months. I bought the fucking shoes. You don't need to bother with this anymore. It happens all the time.
Yeah,
right.
That's retargeting.
And it makes you mad at Astral. You're like, Astral, cut it out.
Yeah.
I do not need to see more rotating ads with Astral shoes anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it happens over and over. And I'm like, this isn't. Who thinks this is working?
Yeah, well, that's pixel retargeting. That's a little different than what I'm talking about. But what I'm talking about is like, and I'm not even talking about. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just being a dick.
What'd you say? I missed it.
I said what I'm saying is important.
It is important, but and now I'm not just talking about news stations because every bit is formatted to an audience, not just news. You know, you have your news that's formatted to an audience. And news is just like an antiquated radio station or just like a Pandora channel or various things. You know, the ads that come up on that, you know, the reason that content is formatted is so an advertiser can actually touch the people they need to, and it's just a race to the bottom. It becomes this reverberation chamber. The advertising business model is a race to the bottom, and it's never been so evident.
You listen to that podcast, New York Times podcast?
I haven't.
No?
Yeah,
Hello?
I did. I thought it was really interesting.
Sorry, cut out there. Yeah, it talks about how YouTube initially was coming up with video recommendations that were along the same lines of what people were already watching. And so if you start watching cat videos, they continue to serve you cat videos. Then they realized that wasn't really working. And so they brought in a bunch of AI guys to very carefully study how they could spiral out to include a much wider group of information to serve up in their recommended video list.
And like, I mean, just as disturbing as, the specifics of what that story lays out is just, I mean, every time you look at social media, it's like, you just got to remember that there are some like exceedingly smart people making a ton of money by just trying to figure out how to waste your time.
Right.
My kids' time. That is the metric,
My kids.
That is the metric.
It is an unwinnable battle to have your kids not watch YouTube. You cannot. It's unbelievably addictive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that just goes back to there's no value. There's so little value that you're getting out of that, and you're just stuck in this reverberation chamber. And they have to do that, or they can't make money off of selling ads. It makes no sense for someone who's looking to buy an ad and target a specific audience about a product or service when they don't know who that audience is. And
so where's our cut of all this is the real important question.
Yeah, how does this come back to us in the Hammer Factor? Like, how does this involve Apex watercraft specifically?
Dude, we gotta get to the bottom of your Apex watercraft fascination.
I think it's great because I want to have EJ on, and I'm slowly building a ground swell of support within the Hammer Factor audience to have EJ come on and talk about this.
I would love.
He'll come on. He'll come on. I'll bet you $100 I get him on.
I would love to see a Ferrari of kayaks come out there. You know,
in fishing.
In all. I mean, I'm not a kayak fisherman, so I really can't speak to what they're thinking. But,
I mean, do you think? I mean, a composite whitewater boat's not a great idea.
People would pay for it. It's totally viable.
God, I would love to see it. I would love.
It's not viable.
I mean, not as a business venture, but like you could make a sick composite boat that you could run the shit in.
Can I go into a rave?
Wait, who?
I'm in. Let's get EJ on to talk about this. You know, like I'm gonna buy a boat. If he comes out with a whitewater boat, I'm gonna buy it. What do you got, Lewis?
No, I'm done. Let's go.
All right. Well.
Okay, we're done talking about Geltman's quarantine. We could talk about.
Geltman, have you been quarantining
talking about
with
Geltman's shelter in place plan for the past couple months?
Yeah, who
it's
have you been?
Tight.
Have you been quarantining alone or with someone else? How does that work?
I'm done.
Well, thank you for listening to the Hammer Factor. I didn't even talk to you about going through all the LVMs. I went through all the LVMs, bought this $25 camcorder off of eBay, and ripped them from all the old tapes. Talk about some.
You have to worry about music.
What do you mean?
Like, can you sell these things? What's the plan?
Oh, they're all online right now. You can
watch every single LVM online.
Every single LVM is on Vimeo right now. It's $20 to see every single one of them.
How about music? There's got to be some music in there that's questionable.
No, all the music we ever used in LVM was licensed.
But how about going back to like the Daniel and Spencer days?
Nobody's flagged us yet.
Yeah.
But it was nuts. I mean, we used to have to capture the tape in real time, do these drop frames. I mean, it was a crazy experience putting all those tapes in, and I would just have them running on the other computer in the background, and all of a sudden I'd hear like somebody's voice I hadn't heard. Or, hearing Charlie Beaver's voice. Dude, the original Big Gun Show, Weld, of you and Kara when you guys got the announcer girl who was in the bikini and the cowboy boots and just running around with hula hoops and all that. Dude, what a grand era of kayaking, man.
Different era for sure.
Dude, I mean, it was a blast from the past. Places I had even forgot I went. There were places, legitimately, I was like, holy shit, that's me. And I was like, I totally forgot I was in that country. Anyway, it was certainly good talking to you guys. I didn't get to tell my story about how I called Weld. He was like, I'm out. Good luck. And he hung up on me. I was like, okay, we'll do a hammer factor later.
I was full PPE at the time.
Yeah. And then I had a great interview with Darcy Geicher about her Amazon trip and writing a book, which kind of got me inspired to write a book. I think you should write a book, Weld. I think you could write a good book.
About what?
Just about
memoirs
of a...
It'd be like a Confederacy of Dunces meets paddle sports. You find it in my attic long after I'm dead, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And it'll like resurface as some like valuable, tidbit of knowledge. Anyway,
Geltman bailed. That's it for Geltman. Should we talk about Geltman while he's not here?
This is a good opportunity to talk about Geltman because there's a lot to talk about.
Some hot gossip, for sure.
All right. 2 hours. Get that thing passed, Lewis. You got one job. Get the House to vote.
And on to Hooters.
Fuck. That bad, huh?
Thanks for listening to Hammer Factor. Send us your emails. Send us your messages. And we'll be back for our Christmas recording.
Ciao.